My name is Erika Antoine-Souklaye. I lead the communications of the UNDP Accelerator Labs, and I will be your host today. We are gathered on Earth Day for the launch of this new research, Untapped Collective Intelligence for Climate Action. It is built on two things: the knowledge generated by Accelerator Lab's cutting-edge experiment in 115 countries, as well as an analysis conducted with Nesta Centre for Collective Intelligence on more than 100 initiatives in the Global South. This research shows the untapped, or if you will, the underexplored potential that emerges when people get smarter together, when they work together, often with the help of technology, to advance climate action. It is an important week for us at the United Nations, not least on climate, where we are organizing a UN 2.0 week to catch up with the pace of change. And this research exemplifies it. We're gathered in the presence of the UNDP Accelerator Lab's founding investors, whose bold vision has led us to today's research. The Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany, and the State of Qatar through Qatar Fund for Development. We also have close to us today present our action partner, Nesta Centre for Collective Intelligence Design, and many accelerator labs joining us from around the world: Kenya, Bolivia, Maldives, and you, 200 of you, and hundreds more are probably coming up in the next few minutes, from academia, private sector, innovation, data science, philanthropy. We are so glad to have you today. And please, once again, use the chat. Tell us where you're joining us from and why you're here today. What to expect? We're going to be together for a bit more than an hour, 75 minutes, in a webinar mode, and we will start to hear from our visionary leader and investors. We will then move on to the findings of this research, the meat of it. You'll be able to use the Q&A to ask some questions to our panelists, and it will then be followed by the way forward. Where do we take this research onwards? For those wanting to stick around, we will open in a much more casual way after the event 4 lounges. You'll be able to open your mics, to open your videos, and really ask direct questions to our panelists, really get to the depth of the conversation. Lastly, for those that are more comfortable to reading in their own language, feel free to use the AI-powered translation feature at the bottom right of your screen. And so before we start with an official video that gives you a bit of a frame, I'd like to go back to the birds that you probably remember hearing at the very beginning. And we want to ask you a little question. Researchers have trained AI models to recognize 75 bird species, and this action supports a particular climate action. Which one is it? So we're going to ask you a question. We're going to open a poll just yet. And we'd like to hear from you. What do you think measuring the sounds of the birds help researchers and policymakers do? We have 4 questions for you, and I'm going to ask the poll to be showcased. I will not give you the answer just yet. You will have to wait until the end of this event. Does it help track biodiversity loss? Does it help check whether reforestation projects work? Does it help monitor air pollution? Or does it help get warnings on upcoming extreme weather events? So what do you think the birds' songs help researchers do and know better? This is really a nature-based collective intelligence initiative that we wanted to start this event with. Please use the poll functionality and we'll get to the answer at the end of this event. A few more seconds. Thank you so very much. So without further ado, I would like to play a video to explain to you what Untapped is about before we welcome our leader and founding investors.
The world is reaching a state of global boiling. The impacts of climate change are not equal or fair. The poor and the vulnerable are the most affected. It's hard to be optimistic about a fairer and more sustainable future. But what if a resource for climate action was hiding in plain sight? Combining people's knowledge, data, and technology can transform the way we understand and act on climate change. This untapped resource is collective intelligence for climate action. What if we listen more to women and men who are bearing the brunt of the climate crisis? What if we tapped into this potential? In India, the construction industry contributes to polluted skies. Using collective intelligence, the UNDP Accelerator Lab and its partners combined satellite data with the knowledge of citizen scientists to pinpoint overpolluting brick kilns and start supporting workers in greener, alternative livelihoods. In Bolivia, climate change means increased drought, floods, and forest fires, damaging biodiversity, ecosystems, and livelihoods where most indigenous people live. Through collective intelligence, the UNDP Accelerator Lab works with indigenous communities of the Chaco region to include their perspectives in the national climate adaptation plans. In Kenya's Tana River County, water scarcity affects everyone. Who gets fresh water and where? To limit friction between those who compete for access to water sources, the UNDP Accelerator Lab is tapping into collective intelligence to create transparency on water access. Collective intelligence closes 5 climate action gaps. The data gap. It mobilizes citizens to collect data about biodiversity, forests, and marine areas. The doing gap. It gets more people involved in solving problems and taking climate action. The diversity gap. It brings a wider range of people into the mix, those who are often the most marginalized in climate investment decisions. The distance gap. It brings scientific knowledge and public experience closer together to create a shared understanding of a complex reality. The decision-making gap. It helps navigate between conflicting views and creates opportunities to weigh trade-offs and find synergies.
Thank you so very much. We would like now to hear opening remarks from our visionary leader and investors. Please welcome UNDP Administrator Achim Steiner.
Thank you, Erika, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everybody who has joined us online. I am very excited to be with you today, and let me begin first of all by recognizing some of my fellow speakers who will address you also in a moment, because they have played such an important role in the journey of both the Accelerator Labs, but also the partnership with Nesta and the many innovators that you just referred to. The first one is Helge Zeitler, who is the Director of the European Union and Multilateral Development Policy at the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development in Germany. Secondly, Fatima Ahbabi, Manager of the Strategic Partnership Department at the Qatar Fund for Development in the state of Qatar, and the Director and Co-founder of Nesta Centre for Collective Intelligence Design, Kathy Peach. Let me also recognize our innovators, thought leaders, and teams from the UNDP Accelerator Labs in Kenya, in Bolivia, and in the Maldives. Dear colleagues, dear friends, it is a privilege to warmly welcome you today on Earth Day. to unveil the first ever research of its kind on how collective intelligence can advance climate action and the Sustainable Development Goals. At the outset, and on behalf of UNDP, let me one more time acknowledge, in particular, the remarkable support that we received a few years ago when we started the idea of the Accelerator Labs from the Federal Republic of Germany and the state of Qatar, whose investments at the time, visionary and courageous, enabled the Accelerator Labs to be built, a global R&D capacity, as we refer to it today, for the SDGs that is now reaching 115 countries. Now, we live in a moment in time when intelligence may sometimes seem quite elusive when we look at the state of international relations, at the setbacks we have had in development, and the struggles we are facing in multilateralism, but also in development at national level. So, in a sense, to bring this notion of collective intelligence to the forefront, we'll obviously in our session today focus in particular at the view of how people, communities, individuals, but together in sometimes a village, sometimes in a whole nation, can drive development. And yet, collective intelligence is still a term that I think we need to interpret in a much more powerful way as being central to what happens next in development, because sometimes it is veiled in a very everyday kind of terminology. And yet, perhaps collective intelligence will ultimately also determine whether technology innovations such as digital and artificial intelligence will actually deliver the results that they could potentially do so. Collective intelligence aims exactly at how communities around the world, but particularly where we are focused in our development work in the Global South, are working together, often with the aid of technology to mobilize a wider range of information, ideas, and data to tackle climate change, a particular focus, obviously, also for the world in this coming 24 months of 2 COPs that will determine in many ways whether the Paris Agreement can still continue to take the world forward by taking it forward together. Collective intelligence also builds on the idea that local communities have direct knowledge of changing weather patterns and how it can radically alter the way they grow food or earn a living. The R&D exploration we have done here in the discussions that we will present reviews over 100 climate initiatives across 45 countries that are powered by what we would refer to as collective intelligence and informed also by the UNDP Accelerator Lab experiments. We will hear today from our team and government partners in the Horn of Africa, where climate change-induced drought is causing crops to shrivel, livestock to starve, and hunger, which is still a very real prospect, and certainly water insecurity have spread, sometimes too little, sometimes too much. This has been the story, particularly in parts of Eastern Africa and even the Horn of Africa over the last years, and something that we cannot solve simply by looking at national infrastructure top-down. In Kenya, the UNDP Accelerator Lab works with dozens of so-called water scouts from herder and farming communities to collect new data using a mobile app on the location of over 1,000 water sources and combine it with other critical data, including the quality of water or the proximity to public infrastructure. The collective intelligence could enable herders to take their cattle to water points where tensions are less likely, while supporting the Tana River County government to manage water infrastructure in real time. With this new knowledge, herders and farmers can better share scarce water resources. And we will also hear how the Kenyan government plans to take this approach to scale. Dear colleagues, the bottom line in many ways is clear. We need to understand and act upon this remarkable body of collective intelligence. It holds untapped potential for climate action. With the next round of national commitments for the climate agenda due in 2025, the so-called NDCs, governments, the private sector, and others have a key role to play in investing in this unique R&D to drive decisive climate action. We look to you to join Germany, Qatar, Italy, Nesta, and other partners as we build the next generation of the Accelerator Labs, the SDG Innovation Commons, the truly global R&D capability for the Sustainable Development Goals and the Sustainable Development choices that countries and communities need to make in the future. We are looking for a new round of investors and partners to drive cutting-edge and public domain experimentation to tap into what 8 billion people know for the good of planet, people, their communities. In short, human ingenuity and this new approach to harness our world's collective brainpower provides us with new hope to change climate futures across the globe. And let me also end by saying that human ingenuity is often associated with maybe one brilliant individual starting with an idea in a garage and then becoming a global empire in the corporate world. Colleagues, collective intelligence goes far beyond the power of the individual. It harnesses literally the ability of people to change what happens next across the globe, and as the little film clip at the beginning showed, in a much more inclusive way, more conscious of diversity, and also in a way that actually empowers and improves the livelihoods of everyone. Welcome to our collective intelligence discussions today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Administrator, for these inspiring words. Indeed, take the next action. I would now like to invite Ms. Helge Elisabeth Zeitler, Director for European Union and Multilateral Development Policy at the German Ministry for Cooperation and Development.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon from Berlin. I hope you can hear me well.
We can hear you very well.
Very good. It's my real pleasure to be here today. And thank you to the administrator, to all the colleagues who are working on this exciting project, and to all the participants online. It's great to see so many already in the chat from everywhere, all over the world. For us, from the German side, it's a real pleasure to be part of this launch. And we've been investing in the accelerator labs because we really see them as a exciting tool to do things differently. Today is Earth Day, with a message that is even more relevant today than it was in 1970. We have a situation, a planetary crisis, where we really need to step up and we need urgent action. And then usually what we do is we say business as usual is not an option. And then we tend to continue a little bit with business as usual, unfortunately. And the accelerator labs are really a way of doing things differently, of exploring new ways of working. And that is so much needed in a time where there's not only a pressing need for the SDGs as a whole, but also for the planetary crisis in particular, and where we need new ways of working. So this is why Germany, together with other partners, has been investing in the accelerator labs from the start. And we see already some of the results bearing fruit. We very much welcome that there is a specific focus here on climate action. Collective intelligence for us is something that is an essential complement to AI, to technology advancement, because we can build more on localized climate data here in the context of the UNTAPPED report. We can bring in people that are usually often not sufficiently heard, not efficiently part of the work on data, on gathering intelligence. So it's really this element of inclusiveness that is essential, and of, as has just been said also by the administrator, of empowerment. And that also means that you bring in a whole range of perspectives, for example, for indigenous peoples from local communities that often don't have loud enough voices to be heard for developing solutions. That might well bring different ways of working, different ways of approaching a problem. For example, I foresee the days in the planetary crisis area, a much stronger focus on nature-based solutions, something that we anyway welcome very much from our side. So there's a lot of potential, as the UNTAPPED report already says, in these new ways of working. And we, as a major donor, are really grateful for this cooperation with UNDP. The whole innovative spirit of the labs and of the UNTAPPED report is something we also want to bring to Germany in October, when we will host the Hamburg Sustainability Conference, where we are also happy to partner with UNDP and many, many others in exploring exactly that new way of working. So I will leave it at these very general remarks, but really a lot of excitement on our side to see the work progressing and to see this report and all the exciting activities that are going on the ground all over the world. So I thank you once again, and I look very much forward to further exploring the potential of new methodologies, new ways of working, and to see where this can take us. And that it can really be a way forward, an innovative way of tackling the planetary crisis that we really need to address with a lot of urgency. Thank you very much, and happy Earth Day for all of us. Thanks.
Happy Earth Day to you too, Director Zeitler, and thank you so much for your opening remarks and uplifting message. Indeed, we need everything we can now to move to action. And I would like now to close and invite Ms. Fatima Ahbabi, Manager of the Strategic Partnership Department at the Qatar Fund for Development.
Hi, good afternoon. His Excellency Mr. Achim Steiner, Under Secretary General Administrator of the United Nations Development Programme, Her Excellency Ambassador Sheikh Helge Al-Thani, Permanent Representative of the Permanent Mission of Qatar to the United States, to United Nations, Mr. Derek Mayer, Director of the Department of Multilateral Development Policy, Transformation and Climate at the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is a profound honor to join you today for the virtual launch of UNDP and Nesta's groundbreaking research on collective intelligence for climate action. As the founding investors of the Accelerator Labs network, Qatar Fund for Development is thrilled to participate in unveiling this innovative approach to tackling climate change challenges by closing important gaps that hinder us from walking to the talk in climate action by tapping into people's collective knowledge and skills, new forms of data and emerging technologies. In 2019, along with the Federal Republic of Germany, we supported UNDP in establishing the Accelerator Labs network, now the world's largest learning network for sustainable development. The labs are testbeds for grassroots innovation, supporting local communities worldwide that constantly face persistent and unaddressed challenges, including climate change. Today, we find ourselves at a critical moment in this 21st century. The combination of human knowledge, emerging data, technology holds a vast yet largely untapped potential to transform our approaches, including developing tools and standards to better understand and respond to climate crisis. Using local and global data to improve community resilience, especially in the global south. By harnessing the power of the Accelerator Labs network and the insight from this new research, we are setting a course toward a more resilient and sustainable future for all. Thank you for inviting Qatar Fund for Development to be a part of the global virtual launch of Untapped Collective Intelligence of Climate Action, and good luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your opening remarks. And once again, I would really like to thank our founding investors for their commitment and visionary support of the Accelerator Labs, alongside UNDP partners at core, as well as Italy and Japan. Let's now dive into what is in this research. I'm sure that you're all here to understand a little bit more the depth of this conversation. And I would like to call in Kathy Peach. Kathy, I see no one better than you positioned to share some of the findings with us. You were here with us 3 years ago as we launched Smarter Together, the first chapter of this collective intelligence journey. So Kathy, now the floor is yours, and we are all very excited. I can see some questions starting to pop up in the Q&A. So please, people, make sure that you use the Q&A. If you already have questions, we'll have them lined up right after our panel conversation. And as always, you have the chat to continue engage. Kathy, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Erika. Sorry, give me 2 seconds just to share this screen again. Great. Okay, wonderful. So at the Centre for Collective Intelligence Design, our mission is to harness the collective intelligence of people and the power of digital technologies to help us solve social challenges together. We're really delighted to have been working with UNDP's Global Accelerator Lab network since 2018, supporting the teams all around the world to use and apply collective intelligence. So what is collective intelligence exactly? So at its simplest, collective intelligence is what happens when people work together to share ideas, to harness more information to solve problems together. So this is something that humans have always done. But increasingly, we're now able to use digital technologies to do this at much greater scales, to do this in entirely new ways, and to even augment our collective human intelligence. So now we often talk about collective intelligence as being about this combination of large, diverse groups of people with new sources of data and digital technologies. And with this research, what we wanted to understand is how collective intelligence is being used in the Global South to drive and improve climate action. Now, to do this, we identified and analysed over 100 different collective intelligence case studies from 45 different countries. We started by mapping the case studies against the IPCC's framework for climate mitigation and adaptation options. We then analysed the methods that were being used, the outcomes the initiatives were hoping to achieve, and the impact that they did. What I'll do now is recap some of the main findings from the research. What we found was that there were 5 main ways in which collective intelligence is contributing to driving climate action by closing critical key climate action gaps. The first gap collective intelligence is helping to close is the data gap. Now, the initiatives that we highlight in the report are doing this by mobilizing community members to generate more real-time, localized data, tapping into community observations, and even helping to ground truth other sources of data. Now, we all know that the scale of the environmental and climate monitoring challenge is huge, but what we found really confirms that citizen-generated data has a significant role to play in helping to close that gap. The second way that collective intelligence is contributing to climate action is by closing what we call the doing gap. So this is the gap between words and action. And the IPCC have highlighted that it's really critical that we close this gap if we are to ensure that climate targets aren't to slip out of our reach entirely. So what we showcase in the report are examples of how collective intelligence initiatives are mobilizing many more people at scale to take part in climate action together, and in holding institutions to account for their action, not just their words. And technology is increasingly key to being able to do this well, helping people to coordinate and share knowledge much more quickly and much more widely. The third gap that collective intelligence is helping to close is the diversity gap. Now, for too long, again, we know that climate environmental action has tended to exclude some of the people who've been most affected by climate change, such as Indigenous communities. But what we are starting to see in this research is collective intelligence initiatives bringing together a wider range, more diverse range of people and perspectives into climate policy making processes, as well as action and planning, ensuring that their needs and their knowledge are more effectively used. Gap number 4 is the distance gap. So this is the gap between scientific knowledge and public knowledge and public lived experience. Now, this is obviously critical for building public support for climate action and tackling misinformation, but it's also critical in ensuring that scientific research is contextually grounded and locally relevant. What we found is that collective intelligence initiatives, particularly citizen science projects, are helping to foster a two-way communication between scientists and local communities, building awareness, trust, and understanding. The fifth and final gap that collective intelligence helps to close is the decision-making gap. Now, too much of our decision-making on climate change at the moment is currently gridlocked. It's stuck and not moving as fast as it really should be because of increasing polarization and an inability to find and cooperate on ways to move forward together that help us to make some of the complex decisions and difficult trade-offs that we know are needed. Now, although we didn't find as many examples of this type of initiative happening in the Global South, we know that collective intelligence initiatives can help close this decision-making gap by supporting people with diverse views and perspectives to come together, to share their views and explore different options and resolve these through structured deliberation and dialogue. Now, of the 100 different case studies that we analysed, we found that 3/4 of them are predominantly focused on climate adaptation, and they're contributing in these 4 main ways: by improving crop management, by improving disaster response, by monitoring emerging challenges, particularly for health systems, and by improving biodiversity management. Now, an example of one of these initiatives is a fantastic project called Seeds for Needs. So Seeds for Needs works with smallholder farmers, and it supports smallholder farmers to test a variety of different seeds. It then crowdsources observations from those smallholder farmers on how well those seeds are actually performing. All of the data from all of the different farmers is then aggregated and analysed on a platform, a data platform called the ClimMod platform. And it's a proven way to find the most climate resilient seeds. Now, Seeds for Needs has now got over 50,000 citizen science farmers working in 14 countries around the world. A quarter of the case studies that we analysed were working towards improving climate mitigation. And these were particularly contributing to ecosystems restoration and reforestation and reducing emissions from waste management. But there were a variety of other interesting applications, including one which was highlighted right at the start. This is a project by the UNDP Accelerator Lab in India, where they recruited volunteers, 300 volunteers, to label satellite data. That satellite data was then used to train a machine learning model. The machine learning model helped identify polluting brick kilns all across India. These are brick kilns that were circumventing environmental regulations. The data was then given to the government, who took action against the 1,000 most polluting brick kilns. Now, we believe that the examples of collective intelligence that are showcased in the report launched today really demonstrate the potential of collective intelligence to contribute to climate action. But unfortunately, they represent at the moment a drop in the ocean of what could be possible, what could be achieved if we were to invest more and to do this much more strategically at scale. But perhaps the biggest untapped potential for collective intelligence is in using collective intelligence for better climate decision-making, helping us to collaborate for better, bolder policy decisions and actions, while also navigating the trade-offs for a more just transition. There are already promising signs of this happening. For example, participatory monitoring at the community level in the Philippines, helping people to collaborate, to make decisions on how to deal with increasingly scarce water resources, through to national deliberative polling exercises to inform energy policy in South Korea, with hundreds of people involved, and also the process broadcast on national TV. Through, of course, to the first ever Global Climate Citizens Assembly, with 100 randomly selected members of the global public taking their priorities directly to COP negotiations. And we believe this is the frontier of collective intelligence for climate action, and an area where we absolutely must see more progress and more action. We've really only skimmed the surface of what is in the report. There is a lot more in there for all of the innovators on this call. There are lots of practical tips as how to design your collective intelligence projects for more impact, for funders and governments. There's also key opportunities for where you could invest in research and development to really help drive this agenda forward. There are also lots of case studies of the fantastic work being done by the Accelerator Lab teams who are part of our collective intelligence design studio. And if you'd like to hear more about our approach to collective intelligence design and the process that the teams went through, please do join us in the breakout room a little bit later.
Thank you, Kathy. Amazing. And I hope this gives everyone a bit of a goosebump, because not only does it show the breadth of the analysis done, but also the potential it holds, right? This untapped reservoir of knowledge and potential that we really wanted to highlight by literally using Untapped on the cover as a big name. So thank you so much, Kathy. And for those wanting to ask Kathy and the Nesta team more questions, please stick around after the event. We will have these casual lounges that I was telling you about. And please make sure you use the Q&A as well. If you have any questions, you can upvote the questions that you like to be answered first and foremost. Kathy, anything else you'd like to add, or are we good to move on? You're good? Super.
Good to move on. Thanks, Erika.
Thank you so very much. So I hope this has given the perspective for people to understand what's in this research. What are the 5 gaps, the climate action gaps that collective intelligence can help us close, and the potential of it. We're now going to move into actual real case examples. You've been hearing some of them, and we'll now dive into them in a bit more details. And we really wanted to also hear from our team in Bolivia and the indigenous peoples they're working with, but the time zone is not really working. And also they've been doing an amazing work. So before we move to the actual panel conversation, I wanted to play you a video that the team in Bolivia has put together to exemplify how they work, tapping into collective intelligence, is helping closing the diversity gap.
Bolivia, rich in biodiversity, ranks 10th globally in vulnerability. It grapples with cyclical droughts, forest fires, and floods, leading to extensive damage. This has severe repercussions, with millions of hectares affected by fires and burns, harming biodiversity, ecosystems, and indigenous livelihoods. Indigenous communities play a crucial role in forest preservation due to their deep connection to the land. Kami is one of the indigenous peoples in the Chaco region of Bolivia, comprising 19 communities.
Cuando salíamos al río, el río corría harta agua en el río, pescaditos se sacaban de la orilla. En los cultivos, por ejemplo, no se necesitaba químico. Nuestros abuelos sabían predecir el tiempo, solo miraban a la luna, decían, la luna está colgada, va a haber agua. O veían las nubes, si viene con agua, va a llover tal fecha, o a tal fecha vamos a empezar a sembrar, y esa fecha se empezaba a sembrar porque sí llovía esa fecha. Más al contrario ahora, pues no, hay un cambio total, ya no se puede ya pronosticar el tiempo.
In 2023, UNDP Bolivia, powered by its Accelerator Lab, in coordination with national and departmental authorities, implemented deliberative workshops to understand the community's climate adaptation needs and better integrate their traditional knowledge and views into official climate adaptation planning.
Y los planes de vida vienen a ser trabajados desde las bases, ¿no? Desde los propios comunarios van generando las ideas, van generando todas las necesidades que se viven diariamente en nuestras comunidades.
The Accelerator Lab worked closely with indigenous peoples of Kami to develop culturally tailored deliberative and visual tools to ensure every voice is heard.
A partir de esta elaboración del plan de vida, estamos gestionando el proyecto con los planes nacionales, los planes departamentales y municipales. Está bien, digamos, este plan está bien vinculado, entonces, como habíamos dicho, más en el enfoque en el tema del cambio climático, ¿no?
Bringing a wider range of perspectives, specifically from indigenous peoples to municipal and national climate processes, is helping close the diversity gap and drive inclusive climate adaptation measures. This increases opportunities for Kami's communities to meet their climate needs and contribute to collective climate action.
I really want to thank the team there, and I hope you get inspired to see how through designing small-scale but scalable initiatives using collective intelligence, we can involve more diverse people, and in this case, indigenous peoples, in having a say on their national adaptation plans. So now I'd like to turn to our panelists to have some real-life examples of what it is and what's happening on the ground when they use collective intelligence to advance climate action. So we have together with us Felix Kadzitu Mumba, country director in charge of water and energy in the Tana River County. I'm gonna give our production team a little bit of time to showcase everyone in a grid. Hi, Felix, I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for joining us today. So country director in charge of water and energy in the Tana River County in Kenya. We then have Lillian Njoro, head of experimentation of the UNDP Accelerator Labs in Kenya. So Lillian and Felix have been working together on a case study that is featured in the research about water scarcity. I'm just gonna give a little time for our production team to showcase the grid to see everyone. I'm still seeing Kathy being pinned. And then we also have Tyler Amaglo-Kobla, founder of the Smart Nature Freak Youth Volunteers Foundation in Ghana. Tyler's work is incredible. You'll hear about him in a minute. He's also featured in the UNTAPPED research. So I'd like to ask my first question. Perfect, so everyone sees everyone, I'm good. Felix, I would like to turn to you first. Give us a bit of a picture of what's happening in the Tana River County, and in particular in relations to water, right? The Tana River is the longest water stream of the county, serving almost 300,000 people, farmers, herders, households. Tell us a bit more, what is the challenge and why water management is becoming an urgent topic?
Okay, thank you so much, Erika, and everyone out there. My name is Engineer Felix Kadzitu Mumba from Kenya, and of course from Tana River County. I'm actually the county director in charge of water and energy in the county of Tana River. Briefly, Tana River County is one of the 47 counties in Kenya after devolution in 2010. And it has a population of around 315,943 as per the 2019 census. It covers an area of over 38,000 square kilometers. Tana River is also part of the Jumuiya Counties of Pwani regional block, whereas we have some other counties down there. We are also part of the FCDC counties in as a regional block also, where we have the most other counties in the country. Basically, that is a small brief of Tana River County and where we come from. I've talked about the azaleness of the county. This county is synonymous to droughts and floods. And this has been a recurring scenario for many years. That is why we've been sitting down as a county government to make sure that how are we going to end these issues. So Tana River has around 5 sub-counties. I am not mentioned to the details, but again, now we have the county and of course sub-counties. And of course, Tana River has been really affected in terms of drought. And after drought, there's a lot of floods coming in. And this does not necessarily mean that it's raining in Tana River. But again, now the other counties in the upper side of the country, whenever it rains, then we receive a lot of floods in the country. So these experience have not been so good for this country, this county. Of course, it has been so hard because they're normally we have some extremes. When it is drought, then we lose almost half of the animals which are here, the livestock. When it is flood season, then there are so many villages which are submerged. Actually, they are underwater. There is scenarios of what you are seeing in Dubai right now. I think everybody has seen how floods are bad. So these are two extreme conditions which normally cause a lot of tensions among the communities within the county. Because remember, during the dry season, there's almost no water actually in the hinterland. And you are talking people who are living distances of more than 150, 200 kilometers away from the river. Of course, I didn't mention that Tana River got its name from River Tana, which transits across, across the county. It's almost over 700 kilometers long.
Thank you, Felix.
And this is and this is one of the biggest, longest rivers in Africa, actually.
Exactly.
So after devolution, some communities were sort of given, the devolution advocates for public participation, coming together and all that. Of course, I've mentioned about the extremities on both floods and the drought season. So these extremes, I want to insist that they normally cause tensions, because at some point,
exactly. So these tensions are at the heart of what you're trying to solve, right? Tension to access water that is becoming very scarce. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I wanted to just bring in Lillian to the conversation as well, because I want to make sure everyone has some time to ask questions. And Lillian, maybe you want to come in and explain a little bit how you've been working with Felix and his team and the community members to map and to create a map of the water infrastructure. And in doing so, you're identifying these data, right? These data gaps that are missing to help anticipate and monitor water. Can you explain us a bit? And maybe Felix, afterwards, you can add a little bit to how you're using this map to actually monitor and manage the water infrastructure.
Thank you so much, Erika. So the engineer has painted a picture of what the situation is like in Tana River County. So as the Accelerator Lab team, in our initial consultations with the county, we noted the potential of harnessing a collective intelligence approach to try and tackle this issue of water scarcity. So our initial hypothesis was that by generating data on water levels, use, and access, we'd be able to better manage the water resources, plan for future infrastructure, and as well respond to climate-related events. So this whole initiative was hinged on two key principles. The first is the diversity of people. So in order to mobilize a wider range of information, ideas, and expertise, we were deliberate in including a wide and diverse cohort of actors and stakeholders throughout the process. So we've had from the county, from the engineer, but in addition to that, we had the national government represented as well through the National Drought Management Authority. And also at the county level, we had multiple departments, not just the water department, coming on board to support the process. Beyond the government perspective, we also worked closely with academia. So we had lecturers and students from two academic institutions spanning humanities and STEM disciplines to bring in a holistic overview. We also brought on board civil society organizations, and last but not least, the herder and farmer communities in Tana River County. So this wide variety of actors helped to enrich the whole process and bring in multiple perspectives throughout the whole process design. The second key principle is the diversity of data. So when we were looking at the previous similar mapping efforts that had been done before, we noted that there was an opportunity to employ a more dynamic approach that would result in more data-empowered communities. So in our initial ethnographic visits in the field, we got to learn from communities about scouts and realize that this was an untapped resource that we could look into. So Scouts are young men in harder communities who are tasked with scouting for water and pasture, and then communicating that back to then trigger livestock migration. So, we drew inspiration from the scouts and decided to recruit and onboard some of them as community data stewards, and who are then properly trained and then onboarded and came on board to help with the data collection process and playing a proactive role in the whole data production system. So in order to ensure that the whole process was balanced, we also ensured that we expanded the community data stewards to have young women as well coming in to provide the gender perspective. And so this 43 data stewards in total were able to use the Open Data Kit mobile app to map over 1,000 water resources in the county, and over 700 social amenities. And all of this data combined with geospatial and hydrometeorological data was combined to develop a collaborative mapping platform of water resources in the county that is available as a public dashboard. And in addition to the quantitative data, they're also able to generate a lot of rich qualitative data that features community perceptions on climate change and how it has impacted herder and farmer relationships. So now that we have this map and this dashboard, it's being used by decision makers in terms of planning, development planning, which includes budgeting for water infrastructure projects, and also enhancing the drought early warning systems. At the community level, through the data stewards, they're able to use this data to advocate for their water needs. An example of this is they've been able to successfully advocate for rehabilitation of non-functional boreholes in their community, which have resulted in over 2,000 households being able to access water. And so we're seeing how community data stewards are playing a critical role in linking the data barrier. Back to you, Erika.
Thank you, Lillian. Very inspiring to see how granular you have gone, hyper-local data, but that then feeds decision-making. Engineer Felix, would you like to come in to maybe just give us a very top-line presentation or idea of how the government of the Tana River County is using that digital, these data points and that digital map to actually assess and anticipate and work on water infrastructure?
Thank you so much, Erika. I want to be very brief on that because Lillian's have mentioned almost everything. But again, now this dynamic map, which is as a result of the collective intelligence program we had, is being used by the county government to make decisions. One, Lillian's have mentioned about those projects, those water sources which were not functional. We are able now to get them on first-hand information. We go to the dashboard, we get all the information, we allocate some budgets, we go to the field to make sure that those particular water sources are functional. We've been also using this particular data, rather the collective intelligence. The data we got from the data scouts is that we are also using it for public participation. I want to mention that we are actually doing our public participation for our 2024-25 financial year. And I've also mentioned that in Kenya, we normally let the communities choose the projects they well wish that they are going to help them. We only come as technical officers to look at probably maybe the design issues and of course maybe appraise those projects for implementation. So basically, it was very easy for us because the community members they already knew what they wanted to do because some of these data scouts are within the community members, and they were the first people to be called so that now they can help the other communities, so that now we can come up with a very good project for the community members. We've seen so many organizations, including the national government, the agencies, and one of them is National Drought Management Authority, who've been actually using this map to map out where they're going to use, probably maybe implement some project. And this is because sometimes there's a lot of issues caused by the drought and all that. So having that map, this dynamic map, I want to mention that this is a map which is living. This is a map which is normally updated by the data scouts. It's actually a real-time basis map that whenever we need some data, we go to the dashboard, and sometimes we actually get the information which we need for planning. We have had a lot of discussion with the cabinet. Cabinet in the county is actually shared with the governor. I'm the only county director who has been attending those particular meetings in Kenya, and of course in Tana River, by the virtue of this particular program, which was funded by the main organizations we have here.
Fantastic.
So I want to say that this thing is really helping the county government in decision making, back to the communities.
Excellent.
And of course, probably how are we going to use it? And within the county, and probably maybe at the community level. We are now able, the community members are now able to get some improved water sources. The water access is now easier for them, because whenever there's no project, we'll just run to that particular area, so that now we can implement some project. I want to mention in this forum that we were able to get funding of almost over 3.5 billion Kenya shilling from the World Bank, which was appraised and approved in December last year, courtesy of the data which we got from this particular activity we've been doing. And we are now planning to go back to the community members to implement this project. And it will take the county for the next 5 years to implement projects worth 3.5 billion Kenya shillings. It's a lot. It's a lot of money for us as a county and as a government.
Congratulations, engineer. I want to make sure we have some time to listen to Tyler that's just lined up, and then that we can receive questions from the Q&A. I suggest that please keep this, and you can share this in the lounge for everyone wanting to continue the conversation. And just wanted to say it's a testament to going to scale, hyperlocal data, involving volunteers, and really filling the data gaps, filling the doing gaps by really taking this action to scale. So once again, congratulations. And I really want to say, let's move on to the western side of Africa and welcome Tyler Amaglo-Kobla, who's the founder of the Smart Nature Freak Youth Volunteer Foundation. And in a way, he's been doing a similar thing by tapping into the intelligence of the people and their ability to be here and collect data. Tyler, I know you often say, we can't manage what we can't measure. You've been doing this amazing work for more than 10 years of literally cleaning up plastic on the beaches of Ghana, but also very much collecting the data, because often this is very this invisible threat, right? Where is the plastic floating exactly? What plastic are we talking about? And since it's invisible, it's much more difficult to take action. So please take us away and explain to us what your initiative is all about.
Thank you very much, Erika. And I will say happy Earth Day to everybody, the panelists and all participants joining us here. If I may say, we talk about citizen science and SDG project, which aligns with SDG 14, Life Below Water. And our main indicator is 14.1.1b, which is a global standard, a global methodology that I've used to measure so that we can manage. If you look at the screen, you can see the points where we start from. We capture the items that we found in the area and all the distance. We find mostly a plastic. We talk about plastic, marine plastic pollution. We involve youth from grassroots, universities, schools, religious bodies, communities, etc. And we use citizen science to maneuver, to get them involved, impact them, to make sure we are collecting better data. Now, what we do when we get on site, We train people, and you can see, we friend here, very young, now he's old enough, have been taking data from the age small. And it's all about taking data, not just the data, better data. We have our own website globally, which is Oceans Conservancy International Coastal Cleanup, have the biggest, largest volunteer network in the world. So this is the data card we use. We have data card front and back that have got all the marine items you could find there. Even the new ones that we find, we have to add it to it and make sure we collect anything and capture data. Data matters. We have the clean apps also that we use when it comes to performance for those who can afford smartphone and advanced. But the data card helps us modernize each and individual. Whether you can afford a smartphone or you can't afford a smartphone, there should be a way to act for nature. So this is what we do. And if you can see the site is there, you can see everybody can go in there. It's a global data access, open data, not what we do and live here. Local data collected, local implementation, but globally. Because you know, when you hear Ghana, Ghana always break the yoke. So when you hear the name Ghana, we are always breaking the yoke, and we are breaking the yoke that globally, Ghana is number one. As Ghana is number one to have independence on the continent, Ghana is number one to report on the SDG 14.1.1b that is allowing globally, everywhere you are in the corner, you have to adopt the system to make sure you're having best practice, because we talk about the best practice. Our organization contributed a lot for this achievement. We had a piloting to modernize the data methodology, the methodology for data collection to be standard. So we had a piloting course from about 7 countries. Our organization was the main contact of the ICC or Global to conduct the modernization to make sure we can have a global standard methodology and practical. So you can see, we use the data card. We are 391 volunteers, 0.15 kilometers square, over 10 million items. We had 11,014 kilograms. Most of the items are plastics. So we realized if we can adjoin in a better way, we can do more. So we target not just the plastic, from microplastic, which is less than 2.5 centimeter above or lower. So we have microplastic, we have other plastic, we do branding, auditing. We brand and fetch and see who owns this item, where is it coming from, and where is it going to end, who owns it. So this is how we were able to catalyze a good data, then integrated into a national level to report on the SDG, making Ghana #1 in the world to report on the SDG indicator 14.1.1b.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tyler. I think this is a testament to one of the clear call to action that we share in the research, which is in order to take collective intelligence for climate action to scale, we need to connect data, hyper-local data that is often patchy at a super high level to a point where it can be visible and standard globally so policymakers can take action. And Tyler's initiative here is showing just this. It is really about finding a way to make that data, not just about what plastic exists in the beach, but how to conduct beach cleanups, a variety of ways with which we can actually determine the data to make action available around the world. Tyler, congratulations. And when it comes to taking these initiatives to scales, before we just go to the Q&A just now, I want to listen to Lillian for one last minute. Lillian, these local scouts, so Tyler is using and working with youth on the beach with the data cards and the app, right, to identify the plastic. You, Lillian, are working with these scouts you were talking about to map the water sources. You were telling us that this is now going way beyond water management. Can you give us an idea of how far has this gone and how is it scaling from a small prototype? It's really scaling in Kenya.
Thanks, Erika. So we have already witnessed some successes in terms of the community data stewards being brought on board to support data needs beyond water-related initiatives. So for example, in fields such as in energy, in agriculture, and collaborating with actors such as the Red Cross. And thanks to, we have a very dynamic and vibrant WhatsApp community that we have built that brings together the community data stewards, government officials and CSOs, where we provide a channel for real-time feedback and engagement on issues happening on the ground, where the stewards can act as a data bridge for the community. And this is something that's complementing the in-person public participation forums that were mentioned earlier, to help bridge some of the gaps where we've seen sometimes community voices are excluded. So as we think about the sustainability and possible big picture for this, we're trying to see how the community data stewards could be embedded within, particularly at the county level, as a resource within the data value chain to provide that link between the community and the county or decision makers. And hopefully this is something that can be scaled to other counties within the region and beyond. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm turning now to the Q&A. There's a lot of questions that already have been answered, but I would like to maybe go to the one that has gotten some upvotes, and maybe call in Gina Lucarelli, our team leader from the UNDP Accelerator Labs. There is a question about how does the collaboration with the Accelerator Labs look like? How does failure look like for such an initiative? It's all very much bottom up, and it's a research and development approach. Gina, if you're ready to jump in on this one, you are welcome. And I will look for the next question as well.
Thanks, Erika, and thanks for the question as well. I mean, I think failure in this initiative, to me, would be really just failing to learn from it, essentially. We see this potential out there, and yet we know that we can all see what's happening to our environment, and we know that when we start to collect data and build the evidence case for that we're more likely to get a response, whether it's from institutions or industry. That is very clear. The failure here would be not acting on that data, right? And very much one of the sort of challenges that we've had, I think, for a long time with collective intelligence work, because it's not a new idea. It's been out there, Wikipedia is over 20 years old, right? Is assuming that when we amass a little bit of data that points to a particular action that should be taken, that actually decision makers will see that data as evidence and that they will take action accordingly. That's the biggest gap that we always find in this work. So that's why, the Accelerator Lab Network is focusing on this, is trying to prototype, as you've seen here, working with partners, working with government partners like Felix at the Tana River County, the engineering department there, working with the Smart Nature Freaks, Volunteer Association, etc., to model to bring closer together the data collection and the action elements, because we see when data is collected closer to the problem, it's more likely to bring about action and results.
Thank you so very much. I think we are soon going to move to the closing, but I may want to take maybe a last or two more questions while many are being answered live. And I hope that the examples that Kenya and Ghana are giving you are, helping you understand and grasping the breadth of the conversation. Lillian, maybe for you, how does sustainability factor into initiatives involving scouts? So you were talking that these scouts are now being, have the potential to be used across the country. Do you have a clear maybe example that you wanted to share?
So I'd say it's still a work in progress in terms of how we are exploring different models. So in our context, the scouts were engaged on a volunteer basis. And so we had to think about, what kind of incentives would keep them engaged throughout the process, particularly on the training and the skilling part. But also we've seen some of the scouts going on to get other opportunities, employment opportunities, and so on. So as we think about the sustainability, we need to think about a whole pipeline approach, so that we have, as they are moving on to bigger and better opportunities, we have other young people coming on board. What has encouraged us is, in Kenya, youth unemployment is one of the pressing challenges. So as we are looking at the digital transformation agenda and what role young people could potentially play in that, especially from the governance perspective, whether this can be explored as a potential, new value proposition within the devolved government structures. So yeah, happy to have further conversations and ideas on that, but thank you.
Exactly, and please join us in the lounges to have direct one-to-one conversations. I want to turn to our team leader, UNDP Accelerator Lab team leader, Gina Lucarelli, for some closing remarks. Gina, over to you.
Thanks, Erika, and thank you all for joining us today. It's really been extraordinarily a good way to start the week. A little bit of, we hope, a dose of hope on the climate front, which is often hard to come by. I think I just want to give you a sense of where we're going to take this from here as we close out. We've heard today how local is beautiful, that, data collection about local environmental challenges, it seems, is more likely to lead to action. People can take action themselves, and they can also monitor the follow-up of institutions and industry around them. So we've definitely kind of taking that home. At the same time, where we are with the climate crisis is that we need to act at scale. And we need to act, much larger than local vicinities. So I think if you have a look at the research, you can pick up some tips on how we can actually connect local citizen science, crowd mapping, crowdsourcing efforts that are underway, where people are reflecting their lived experience in the environment around them. We heard from Tyler and the Smart Nature Freaks how they do that, how they use data standards to, yes, clean up the beaches in Ghana, but also connect up on a larger national and international scale. So we should definitely take that forward. We also heard about the potential for collective intelligence to help us navigate the gridlock, as Kathy put it, in climate action that we often see. And even though we're not yet able to really point to a wealth of experience on this area, I would say even the potential is good news. It's good news because the deeper we get into the climate crisis, the tougher the decisions are going to be that we have to make. Firstly, and secondly, we can have all the data and all the AI models in the world, but if we can't bring in a diversity of viewpoints to make decisions that benefit us all, then none of that is going to help us. I think when those of us that are active in the climate sphere that want to solve the problem, there's often two camps. There's the camp that says, let's innovate our way out of the problem. And there's the camp that says it's time to make tough decisions. It's time to stop subsidizing coal, oil, and gas and investing in clean energy, right? So it's either innovate or make tough decisions. What I offer to you, and very much our research and development agenda going forward at the UNDP Accelerator Labs, and we're looking for partners for this, is actually that it's not a choice between innovating and making tough decisions. We actually need to innovate to learn how to make these tough decisions. So this is where we're going to take this from here. We will continue to test out ways to fill data gaps with lived experience data, with ethnographic data, with anecdotal data, with anecdata, whatever you want to call it, and with satellite and drone data where we've seen a lot of potential. We will do so in a way that drives action, but we will also focus on learning how to make tough decisions together, because this needs to be at the core of research and development going forward. So we're very much looking to all of you to partner with us. I would also just offer as a call to action, if you want to get active in citizen science work that is in your locality, do so. If there isn't one, start a group, have a look at the report, because you can pick up on the lessons learned and what others have done along the way and how to do that best. And to our international organizations and academic partners, please join us and the IPCC in lobbying to make public participation and local knowledge at the core of climate action. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Gina Lucarelli, for these inspiring closing remarks and sort of looking ahead and making sure that this research really lands and continues to live. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. You can find this research at undp.org/untapped. This is where you can download the PDF and also skim through the website. There's a lot of material, many stories and case studies, which we hope you'll find very interesting. I want to say a big thank you to our panelists, to our speakers, to everyone who joined today. And for those that have a little bit more time, stick around. I wanted to give you the answer to the very first question, if you recall, and you can hear the birds just now. The team of researchers in Germany that have been using AI models to look at, to listen to the birds was actually to check whether reforestation projects work. Answer number 2. And they're seeing strong potential to actually hold private companies accountable for their claims on reforestation. You may know many big brands are saying, well, we're planting trees and we are reforesting this part of the world. And so we're seeing a potential to tap into this model, which uses nature and technology to keep these companies accountable for their claims on reforestation. We thought it was very interesting also to end on a note with a bit of nature. We have here today with us people that are caring for it. We thank you once again, and now we will open lounges. The official event is now ending. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, of your evening, and please stick around if you want to chat to our people. So we will have one lounge to talk to Tyler in Ghana, another lounge to talk to the team in Kenya, a third lounge to talk to the team in Bolivia. You saw the video about the work that we're doing with indigenous peoples in Bolivia. And then lastly, a lounge to talk to the people at Nesta. So you can open your mic and open your video. You will soon see the breakout rooms appearing at the bottom of your screen. And you are more than welcome to join. Imagine we were all in the same room. So now you basically grab your cup of coffee, grab your glass of water, and join the people you want to talk to. Thank you so very much, and have a wonderful rest of your day. We will make this event available online on YouTube shortly.